Right.
Hi, everybody. We are super excited for episode 4. We had our first guest on, and we've had some great feedback, some good criticism as well.
Yeah.
So, which we welcome. But one thing that I have to say is that when me and DáNiel started this, we said, listen, we're not stopping. And we haven't done so since starting. And we've got a few guests lined up for next week, which is also going to be great. But for today, true to Greater Talks nature, we said, listen, we're definitely not going to skip a week. We're going to have a sit down. And something that we really thought was worth unpacking was something that came out in episode 2, which we've gotten some good feedback on, regarding people's views on the South African economy and the question regarding can South Africa be a version in and of itself of Dubai and what was achieved in Dubai or in the UAE, if you want to broaden that. So, and we did mention or make mention of the fact that that to increase to increase the economy, the size of the economy, our view is that there needs to be a huge increase in the entrepreneurial ventures in South Africa with a key focus on actually exporting product and exporting services. So I'm gonna hand it to DáNiel with that, and the question to start the discussion off today being that DáNiel is super passionate about entrepreneurship and about business, and also motivating and getting people to actually take that first step to actually go after their dreams. And so DáNiel, if you can kick us off on your views with regards to people actually really chasing after their dreams in the business space.
So what I think, and actually one of the discussions that I had with a group of women about 2 weeks ago is about, because the trick there is always, and I was, for a long time, I was actually wrong on that side, to push everybody to become entrepreneurs, and that, because that's the way. And that's actually not so. So there's a big or there's a majority of people that sits in the current working environment and think, yes, they need to start something on their own, and they need to, and then all of these people wants to then either have a side hustle. So it's almost that, not to say principle, you can own a lot of cars, but you can only drive one at a time. Otherwise, if you want to drive 2 cars at a time, you'll crash one.
Yes,
or
I agree.
both. So and I saw that actually a lot happening with people, having a side hustle and then neglecting their current work environment, and then obviously either get laid off or the performance go down because their focus is not at the places where they should be. So one thing that I'm actually like trying to get to now is to, and that's super difficult, is to and especially we that's sitting with a lot of people, is when do you leave the corporate environment? Because everybody cannot be entrepreneurs.
100%.
Although there's a big, let's say, hunger for us to grow our country's economy and to, obviously we want to employ a lot of people, but there's almost this, like, how do you gauge, when do you start with entrepreneurship? And obviously, I don't really have the solid, that's with each and every individual to decide in which, sector they do fall here and when to make that decision.
Yes.
So, but I often I think passion is a huge thing. People are usually drawn towards their passion, and that would obviously sprung into some sort of entrepreneurial environment.
I agree.
But yeah, back to the point regarding, let's say, our country. And
but let me just stop you on that quickly, right? Because I think you touched on something that's quite important. People that are listen. There's a third category, obviously, as well, because we're sitting with a high unemployment rate, right? But I mean, for people sitting in corporate, we've sat with so many people that are sitting with a situation where they want to go after the entrepreneurial venture that they're carrying in their hearts, but they're working a 9 to 5, and it's sort of the situation: do they actually take the plunge? Do they not take the plunge? And one of the things that we've discussed that I think is worth mentioning is the saying that really rings true for this, and it's he who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. And that's always such a difficult thing because there are people that actually start the side hustle and they manage to leverage.
Make a huge success out of it.
100%, right? But to be honest, at least in our experience, the majority of them don't. And I think it's because of the split focus, right? And that's not to say that that's not the route to go, but it does carry some value, you know. And for me, and this is sort of, I think, something that we can dive into a bit. It's the understanding or the belief that people carry in terms of, are they actually called towards being an entrepreneur and starting their own business and being that individual, or are they actually better suited within the corporate structure? Because that's another thing, right?
And it's needed.
Well, 100%.
Corporates cannot run their firms without any employee.
That's the thing.
or just entrepreneurs or just outsourcing.
That's the whole point, right? I recall back from my days in corporate, you know, that one of the terms that rang true was entrepreneurship versus intrapreneurship, right? And I mean, that is very valid in today's sphere.
So for me, and listen, this is maybe one of the reasons why we started this podcast.
Sure.
Is we know how difficult it is to actually put something out there and to actually build a business, let's say from scratch.
Sure.
To take a current business to grow it, and the amount of effort that needs to go into that. And I think sometimes, so one thing that we always do is count the cost before we do anything. Definitely. So try to get to what cost are we counting for this project or for this business or for this venture, what we're going to do. And according to that, it makes the decision easy. So for me, sometimes it's everybody see the results of whatever, you know, other oaks did. And the efforts that, they don't see the efforts that went in there, they only see the results. So then they want to take on this adventure, and then when it gets tough, they usually either quit. And for me, back to the first point, why? Because where they chose to be actually. So it will always be the easier way to be working for somebody, because to get that into being is the difficult part. To employ people, obviously now you need to study and to get into the system. That's not easy. To get degrees and all that stuff, I don't say that's easy. It's just to birth something into being is not that easy.
Yes.
And for me, that's why the stats is out there, that there's only 1% that really are truly successful, and that the majority of the world or let's say not that, if you're only talking about money terms and not about, you know, all the things, but in money terms, that's why if you give a couple of people, you know, if people is on an island, if you give all of them the same amount of money, the stats is that the money will eventually end up in either 2 or 3 guys' hands if you take 100 people. So for me, it's about we know our country, South Africa, is underdeveloped if we look at, and especially Africa, if you look at, you know, from a global perspective. So surely the money needs to come to our country.
Yes.
And I think what we are after is to, you know, get people positive and get entrepreneurs and people's mind switch on to think of the things where they can make, you know, a financial, let's say, breakthrough. Because they will
contribution.
A contribution, but have that breakthrough within that idea or, you know, that passion that they have towards our economy in Africa, because the money will flow. Yeah, we saw the whole plan with BRICS that they want to do. But for me, it's that the opportunity in Africa is there. When it's going to boom, a lot. While people were talking about Africa booming, there was a couple of businesses built in South Africa that are super successful. So the opportunity are there. It's just the willingness of the people to, you know, almost.
But hold on, right? What do you think is holding people back to actually go after it? And let's again, I mean, just to give some meat to that, I'll rather say meat to that bone, right? Is the younger generation, right? People that have got less risk, they've got time to catch up, you know, if something does go wrong. What do you think is holding them back, and how do they actually overcome it?
To be honest, I think a couple of people, and especially the ones that had breakthroughs this last, let's say, 10 years, caught that let's say, first world mindset. I truly believe that people are not exposed to enough, and they realize that that's what I said to you. If I know what I knew now, I would have maybe dropped out of school at 14 and start trading and
Yes.
start, buying and selling stuff, just to understand that principle better. And luckily, I started working at a young age. But for me, it's about, and I said it, I think it was the first episode or second episode, it almost feels like we were kept in the dark.
Yes.
And I think that's a major role to play, is that our townships are, it's almost like they, or not let's say they, but it's almost like it's the world's plan to not educate, because the more we not educate, the lesser issues we will have, because that's safe. To keep people in townships, to keep people uneducated, to keep them, not to know how the flow of money works. And I think a couple understand, the flow of maybe trading, selling stuff at spaza shops, or maybe starting your own business at, school we had, what's it, I cannot remember the days, but like the days where people, bazaar or whatever.
At school now.
Yeah, when
Like I remember, but I can't remember what
you
the
brought
phrase
your
is.
stuff, and then there's this little, stations, and this is, the condensed milk, and that's like clay and whatever. But so some principles are understood there. And I think if you understand it, you can apply it in any, sector. The principle of money and multiplying money.
Yes.
And to take either a skill or a good and to convert that into, selling it to people. So I think to educate people and to actually almost let them into the loop, to understand how it flows, and to teach people how to how to multiply money and how money works. And that whole principle, I think, for me, it's definitely something that I feel people are left in the dark. And that's a huge contribution, I think, towards our country, and especially countries similar to us, and especially Africa. That's, Africa's.
One of the things that come to mind for me is it was on one of I can't remember if it was a podcast or if it was a reel or something, but it was something that Busi Tembakwayo said with regards to people starting businesses, and again paraphrasing, right? Obviously we're huge fans, but he said that that people don't start businesses, or a lot of people actually mention the fact that it's difficult to start a business because of lack of capital, right? And he said you don't need capital, you need a client, or you need a customer. And when I heard that the first time, I thought, yes, see, it almost sounds harsh, right? But if you think about it, right, there's so much of value in that. You don't need capital, you need a customer. And one of the things that we've discussed, and yes, see, that we've learned firsthand is, listen, that's probably the most difficult part of starting a business, is getting a customer. And the reason is, or at least one of the reasons is, people really struggle to sell. Because they learn so many skills. They learn math, they learn accounting, they learn people skills to a certain extent, right? And I mean, there's all of these other subjects, and go through life, but they really lack the skill set to actually sell
something. Well, that's the part where you're making 1 rand, 2 rand.
Well, 100%, and it's there's also, again, there's a lot of things, right? But it's the confidence of actually backing yourself to say, listen, first of all, I back my product or my service. Then it's the confidence to say, listen, now I'm going to go out there and face rejection, willing to face the rejection, and then actually sell. And then obviously also having the endurance to keep on selling until you actually make the sell.
And for me, that's super important. Why you will see people that have a passion for something. It comes naturally, because they back themselves in the sense of, I know I can do this. This is a passion of mine. It's not, sometimes it's a passion and then they're not really that good at, but they're confident at it, and then obviously master the skill over time and then become good at it.
Yes.
But most of the times, when I sit with, guys that want to figure out what they need to do, I always ask them, like, what did you really want to do when you were young? Like, what was that one thing that you thought is like impossible, but you wanted to do it?
Yes.
And the thing for me is that would always be a natural thing that you can do. It would always, because it comes natural. If you were good in athletics as a youngster and it came natural, and you
Yes.
started training extremely well, the chances of you going to the Olympics or whatever, and you're committed, you're persistent, is super high.
Yes.
The one that's not that good but he loves it, usually, don't make it. And so that's sort of an easy example for me to use. And it's the same in the working environment. You need to figure out what, even if you're in corporate or in private sector, what's that one thing that you are good at that people want? Because
Or that you can become the best at, right?
or that you can become the best at. But if you're the best at it, people will want to come for that skill
Yes.
or that. So that will be the fruit that the people want. And sometimes people, pause, and Steve Jobs said it great, is to not, take a product and sell it off to the market, is get a solution.
Yes.
And sell the solution to the people, to solve a problem.
Agreed. I think for me, in that lies the fact that I think people need to, and again speaking to the younger generation, right? But people really need to get to the place where they understand how valuable they actually are. Because a lot of people actually just value themselves, at least this has been our experience, right, in monetary terms. And that's that's shaky ground actually to stand on if you're just starting out. Whereas as if you actually look inside of you and really sort of discern the potential that you actually have, that's the first thing, you discern the potential that you actually carry. Immediately there's a sense of value that actually kicks in. And then what normally happens, if you really go after it, it sort of stirs a willingness to actually start maturing that potential and working on that potential. Because we've often had this discussion, right, that people want to do something. People want to actually go after a business idea or even go for a job interview or whatever the case may be, whether, if it's in a big corporate, but they seldom have the understanding of how good they need to be to actually, for lack of a better term, live at the level that they want to live or have the contribution that they actually want to give. You get what I'm saying? People very easily camp at average.
Well, it's that thing that we keep on telling our teams is we're all chasing the same pot.
Well, this is a good thing. I mean,
marketing-
you should go on this, right? This is powerful.
So
The pot size is only this big, right?
The pot size is this big. So if you're in marketing, we're all chasing the same pot.
The same amount of money.
We're chasing the same clients, we're chasing the same people. If we're in pharmacies, we're chasing the same clients to get their chronic medicine to. If you're in the building projects, there's only so much houses that you can build. So all the contractors would chase that same pot of money that will be spent.
Yes.
So for me, you need to be good. And people don't understand it. They don't know, or they don't understand the level of skill that's required for them in this day and age where everybody's got availability to, a lot of knowledge.
All of the information, right?
Everything is there. You go onto your phone, where back in the day you needed to go to the library and then study. It's not a click of a button. Now it's at the click of a button. And that's also, not to say it's an issue for me, but the thing is, you need to be good. You need to be upskilled. You need to spend a lot of time upskilling yourself because if, for instance, let's just take marketing. If two marketing companies do exactly the same, or sell the same services, and the one outsmarts the other one, surely that one, over time, they need to be better off from a monetary term.
So let me pause you on that, right? So when you started out, and I'm gonna ask you to just give a simple answer because I know it's a complicated answer.
Yeah.
But when you were just starting out as a youngster, right, and you came to the realization that
I'm still a youngster.
well, I'm saying let's then say an infant.
Well, I started at 19.
How's that? So. When you started out as an infant in business, right, and you started realizing, oh my goodness, I really am punching so far above my weight class that I really need to upskill myself. How many hours on average for that period? And I mean, I know for a fact, it's the better part of 3 or 4 years, right? How many hours on average, truthfully, did you actually put in on a daily basis?
So let me just explain to you a little bit about my daily routine, maybe. I think you know, but the listeners don't know. So I started out 4 a.m. So 4 a.m., my father's PA and our MD back in the days, PA, would wait for us in the office, and obviously we'll start at 4 a.m. So then we will be in discussion. So obviously I was punching way. I was the youngest by 20 years in every boardroom that I were in. And I actually heard about a lot of terms that I heard about it, but in environment, I quickly understood, yes, you need to upskill yourself here, because these oaks is talking about stuff as it's by the way.
Exactly.
And I don't even have the cook and clue what the term is about. So,
and it hits your pride, right? Because you're sitting there.
The thing is, I'm super competitive in sports and in, you know, business environment. So for me, it was almost like a little bit of a, not to say a pride thing, but I cannot sit there and don't know what these guys are talking about.
Yes.
So from an hour perspective, I'm going to be dead serious with you. I don't know, but it's 3 years worth of almost every night sitting on a different topic.
Yes.
So, my first one I can remember was cash flow. So we were speaking about, yes, and my father were talking about cash flow and you know, how we need to use it. And there was a lot about it. And I knew what cash flow is, but I didn't understand the dynamics of it. And I quickly understood when they started throwing questions at me, I don't have a cook and clue how cash flow worked. So I spend about, I must say, on cash flow alone, I cannot think that it was less than 40 hours to spend on just to understand, because that was my thing. If there was something that I didn't understand, I went back and I made sure I can understand this thing proper before I go back and even talk. And that
this compounded over a 3-year period.
Because every time there's a topic, I would compound it.
Yes.
Every time there's a topic, I would compound it. And the thing for me was I will never speak about that topic if I didn't understood it. So the moment I understood it,
but you can't always be the quiet one in the room, right?
It was difficult.
You need to actually
be honest, because otherwise I cannot go there and say, listen, I don't understand this topic. Give me 40 hours.
Exactly.
And I'll come back and talk to you guys. So I needed to wait to wing around it. But so for me, it's and sometimes that's a difficult part. It was just, for me, it really came natural, that I'm lucky about.
Yes.
But and I must say, the moment I understood it, I could apply it.
Yes.
So it wasn't just a term that I was throwing around. I understood it because the time was put in.
And I'll tell you this because I think it's going to be valuable for our audience, right? There's a lot of chatter out there about being uncomfortable, right? But that is, listen, it's more valuable than people think. To actually be able to put yourself, whether it's on the entrepreneurial side, right, or whether it's within the corporate side, but to be willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation for an extended period of time. There's so much power and so much value unlock in doing that, right? That, I mean, I don't think we can actually even put it into words. Because here's the thing: the more you stay there, whether you see it or not, the better you get. And here's the thing, I mean, on top of that, right, it's the willingness to then actually go and say, listen, I'm going to now learn this so that tomorrow I can apply. And tomorrow you do the same thing. And the day after that, you do the same thing. And in a year, 2 or 3's time, you're able to be, a director.
Can I be dead serious with you? So you said now the willingness. That was the biggest thing that I needed to overcome. Because at the beginning, I thought I knew what all that things are about. And I wanted to talk the talk. But when I was alone, I knew, you don't know all of it. You don't know these terms well.
Exactly.
I was sitting in the room, I was there. So sort of arrived.
Yes.
But I don't know the terms. I don't know exactly how these things work. So it was the willingness to almost humble and, to put myself in that super uncomfortable situation with myself to say, hey, pal, you don't understand this. So go study.
Yes.
So the most difficult thing for me was to actually go get the course.
Agreed.
And go search for that, course to go and learn more about it. So that was to be honest with you, that was the most difficult part for me.
And I'll tell you something that I want to touch on, right? Because I mean, I really think that you did this well. Well, I know for a fact that you did it well. But again, people listen to a lot of information that's out there. And again, we're going to touch on this now. But it's the skill of failing fast, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people hear that, but this is where willingness comes in.
To fail.
To actually get yourself to the place where you are willing to fail. Because here's the thing, a lot of people they say that they're willing to fail, but it's like they're 90% sure. When they actually take a step, they're 90% sure that they're going to make it. There's a 10% chance that they're not going to make it. Just hold on a sec, right? And on that basis, they do it. But to be truthfully or really willing to fail, there needs to be a 90% chance of failing. Because now you're really getting uncomfortable because you actually don't have the information. But something that we've said a million times to one another, in the things that we've done is And I mean, listen, give honor where honor is due. Obviously, it's something that we learned from Bishop Jakes, is that it might not be the thing, but it's most probably the thing that leads to the thing.
Yeah.
But if you never start with a thing,
You're never going to get
it can never lead to the thing, right? And let's take it completely back, right, to getting people to actually go after their dreams, to really, and obviously not specifically in business, but start with a thing, because it might not be the final thing that you do forever, but it will lead to something that is of value if you're willing to remain there long enough to learn and to work at it.
Wow, how many clients did we sit with that started out with something totally different that they're doing currently? So
100%.
they started out with this thing. This got them out of corporate, for instance, people that need to get out there, because there are some
Yes, I
that
agree.
are super talented, but it's not, let's say, exposed to the world in the corporate environment. They left it for something else that, lead to the thing. So
Yes.
that was the thing that led to the thing.
Yes.
The thing for me is, and we say, fail fast and rather fail sooner than later. And it's, listen, for us to start this podcast, we didn't know exactly what's going to happen. We didn't know exactly what we need to talk about. We put the camera on and we started talking. And now we are at the fourth, episode.
Yeah.
And our quality will get better. Our locations will differ every time, maybe, I don't know. We're still figuring it out. But
Yes.
at least every time we sit here, we've got whatever's on our hearts brought out, because we know if there's one thing, we need to speak about what we're feeling.
Yes.
Because South Africa needs it.
Well, I mean, listen, this is a great example, right? I mean, and just so that everybody knows, this is literally the way that DáNiel rocks, right? We literally started out of nowhere. And here's the thing. We're 10 days in.
Yeah.
We started unscripted, unprepped, just sharing what's on our hearts, and we're going to continue doing that. And we 10 days in, almost 400 subscribers, and we're going to obviously build on that. And I think that stands true for most things in life. Start, and the results will follow. But if there's no action, there's going to be no results.
Yeah. And the thing for me is, look how many, people reached out to us, wanted to come on the podcast. We've got some exciting guests that's going to, come in the following weeks. So for me, it's that momentum, and momentum leads towards results.
I agree.
It doesn't happen the other way.
I agree.
But yeah, so for me, I think, and especially I want to do this one thing that we didn't speak about, or that I didn't, speak to you about. But for me, it's our situation that our country are in. And we spoke last episode, 2 episodes back, I cannot remember, about, we looking into the past, or felt like we've been kept into the past. But for me, it's a huge thing of South Africans maybe not seeing the opportunity that's to come. So for instance, I'm not 100% sure if this BRICS thing is positive or negative. All I know is I believe there's going to be a lot of money flowing into Africa. But if that's one thing, to run and start building, because we can only generate momentum now for the future.
Correct.
Momentum doesn't go into the past.
Correct.
So momentum can only be generated now to build something in the future.
100%.
So to prepare whatever they need to prepare, to catch almost this wave of people that will invest in Africa, because it's going to happen. It's an undeveloped nation.
Well, it's already happening.
The infrastructures are not there. I were involved in a couple of African projects that did not, were so successful as it should be, because there's no infrastructure. There's no delivery systems.
Yes.
I know there's a couple of big South African companies, logistics companies specific, that try to implement the infrastructures in Africa. But the thing is, we need the people to, build businesses, to sell stuff, whatever they're selling, current businesses, new businesses,
Yes.
and deliver that goods into Africa.
Yes.
But it's the essence is we cannot change the past.
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, in terms of looking forward, and again, we've touched on this, but it's sort of all of us getting to the understanding of what our position is within the situation, right? And the starting point that we at least believe in, and not necessarily to drill or dive into that, but is that everybody is positioned to be fruitful and to multiply where you situated at. And we situated in South Africa, we situated in Africa, and we've got a stern belief that we're not willing to back off from, that we are here to be fruitful and to multiply. And ultimately, there's always fruit, because it's a principle. It has to be so. You cannot apply that principle with the understanding that you actually do have the authority to be fruitful. You actually do have the authority to multiply. And if you go after it with enough action, that there's not going to be fruit. It doesn't make sense. Fruit will come.
Yeah, and the
Time might differ. But fruit will come.
But that's the biggest thing. We cannot do nothing about I think it's close to 40% unemployment rate now. We cannot do anything about it.
Well, with immediate effect.
Well, immediate effect. We cannot do anything.
Agreed.
But we can do something tomorrow.
100%.
Or now, the next 20 minutes, or the next hour. That's all we have. We cannot do anything about the stat. But it's neglecting that stat, the past 2, 10, 20, 30 years that lead to this. People that did nothing about it or took the wrong, directions. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is that need to be clear is that every single person has something to do. You're not built to sit in your house and do nothing.
We agree. It's not good for man to be alone.
It's not good
it's
for
just
man
the way
to be
that
alone.
it is.
So, and that's the thing. That 40-odd percentage of people that's currently not employed, most probably some that's hungry for business, either will end up stealing because they don't know better. So they'll end up in that
hungry,
situation.
not just knowing better. I mean, listen, you need to eat.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's the right thing. I'm just saying it's getting forced into a very difficult position.
But they've got something to offer the world, or Africa, or South Africa. So, and that's something that we are after to stir, to say, listen, we need to do something. Because we know that they are talented in something. We don't know what they are talented in. But every person got something that they need to offer. And I think maybe towards the education side, that's maybe something that, I don't know if there's, there's a lot of courses that you can do that and to find out what you need to do. But maybe the schools need to, maybe, and I don't know, I don't think that's going to work in any ways regarding our current school system, because I'm thinking, in a sense.
Well, I mean, listen, Elon Musk started his own school, right? If I'm not mistaken. And he's in a first world situation, and he just said, even within the first world sphere, he's not happy. And I mean, but you must correct me if I'm wrong here, but he's not happy with the educational system there. So he's starting his own school.
So, and because what I wanted to lean towards is the schools drawing out the one thing that one or person is good at. But within the current system, while I was speaking, I cannot see how that's going to happen.
Well, here's the thing. I think it boils down to teachers, because I mean, teachers are super valuable, right? Let's just give honor where honor is due, right? But here's the thing. It's again a calling. If you truly are called to be a teacher, I believe, at least on a personal level, that you're going to carry that gifting of being able to actually discern within children what the actual potential is, and you're going to be able to guide them. Because here's the thing, just teaching and memorizing and doing all of those things doesn't necessarily awaken the gift within the child. You get what I'm saying? It's part and parcel of leading that child through 12 years of school to get them to get to know themselves. Because listen, let's be honest. I mean, even us, I'll speak for myself, right? But when I got out of matric, even when I got out of varsity, being privileged enough to go through varsity, I came out there and I definitely didn't know myself. I really didn't. I mean, I had a sort of vague view of what I thought I was good at. I definitely knew I was good at hard work. Thank God for that, right? But here's the thing. Imagine getting out of matric, 18 years of age, and having a thorough understanding and a truthful belief in who and what you are and what you were created to do, in this world.
It need to make a huge difference.
I think so too.
So the thing is, but listen, I do understand there should be a journey finding yourself, but at least earlier, people should lure one towards that direction.
Well, understand that this is actually the main idea, right?
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like they'll prefer keeping us in the dark, not to teach us that, because then they know they'll maybe have another revelation of people standing up against the current systems.
Yes.
So. But yeah, I think for us, and especially for the next guest that's gonna come on board, we need to strive to look towards some sort of solution and what we can, as greater talks and maybe the greater team, can do. Although we believe what we're building are contributing towards some solution to South Africa, but I do believe. Because one common goal that we spoke about is needed in South Africa, even if it's something that just gives our South Africans a hope that we can strive for. For instance, this whole let's say this whole BRICS currency that they're working towards. If there's some sort of common goal that South Africans can, work towards, that we know, for instance, we know there's going to be a flood of money going into Africa. People can prepare themselves, and because hope, is something that I think is super important, especially that's why vision is so important. So even if there's just a new vision for South Africa, and to be stipulated maybe in our school, papers or whatever, just to get some sort of common goal in Africa or South Africa specific. I think it should start with South Africa. But to have one thing, it doesn't then need to be like this. Listen, we're big dreamers in the sense of we believe there's going to be trillions flowing into Africa and South Africa, but
there's definitely going to be trillions flowing into South Africa.
No, we know that for a fact. But the thing is, maybe that's not the solution towards getting the trillion or the 40% unemployment rate up. Maybe changing some laws to help people start businesses. And channel that and have some sort of vision to say, listen, we've got a vision that South Africa will be without any unemployment in the year 2030, for argument's sake, and have some sort of set rules in place to help the South Africans set up there. And maybe it's not that great idea, but at least that's some form that will create unity in South Africa. And then obviously there should not be a race advantage or disadvantage.
Well, I'll touch on that, right? And I think this is something that we need to unpack in future episodes. But I do think there's value in it, and this is based on best current knowledge, right? But I think a huge common goal, because I can't see that anybody is not going to be willing to actually align with that, is to break the back of poverty.
Yeah.
It's a vague goal, I think, in terms of the how.
Oh. Yeah.
But in terms of an actual reachable goal, to break the back of poverty is a huge thing in all emerging markets, right? But especially I don't want to say especially in South Africa, but in South Africa. And here's the thing.
Well, especially South Africa because it's our country.
Well, because we're here, right? But there are other emerging markets that have a similar challenge. The point is that at least a point to start is people that do feel, people that know that they have business inside of them, to actually get to the place, to go after that dream and start creating jobs.
And to have assistance.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Listen, we agree on this, that the dollar billionaires should have space to really fund a lot of these businesses and assist these businesses. Money is not the only thing, right? But to really bring the assistance. I don't think that is wrong, but to be honest, I also don't think that they necessarily. It's not that they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's reasons that might be stopping them to do it to the full extent that they want to.
I 100% believe our country's laws and especially labor laws and our tax laws is not lucrative for all these, let's say, dollar billionaires to move any of their dollars to South Africa. Why would they do that?
I'm worried that it's more the risk,
The risk is 100%.
They view the country as being very risky. Listen, the fact that we were, that we had that junk status makes it complicated.
So there's a lot of, we know that VCs don't want to invest in African, entrepreneurs starting out with tech companies because of all the fraud and stuff that happened. Especially, we had a case 3 weeks ago about, a VC firm that didn't want to invest anymore in a tech startup that was in South Africa. So because of fraud and all that stuff. So I think we agree on that. But still, the laws and stuff is not in place, and to stimulate our economy. Listen, I don't want to delve into that, but I think there's a lot of work need to be done to get our country to a better place where we can have foreign investors investing hugely in our country, not in only Cape Town and some parts of Joburg. And it was the weirdest thing. I actually have we're on a flight back from New York, and there was a guy on the plane with me that wanted to invest in some place in Pretoria, and he were asking me about property, and we were actually speaking about it. This is something we never spoke about. It just came to me now, and I was asking him, why Pretoria? And he literally said to me that obviously, so the properties in Cape Town were too expensive for him, so he wanted to look at. But I've got his number, And he just said to me, listen, it's not worth it for him. So he texted me the other day to say, listen, he didn't invest anymore, so he wanted to speak to me where our properties are, and because he asked me a lot of questions about it. But the thing for me is if there's a lucrative system for them, there's a reason why there's a lot of money moving to Dubai. There's a reason why people set up structures in the Cayman Islands. There's a reason for that. And don't think for 1 second, not you, I think you understand that systems quite well, but there's a reason why that country set up that laws like that, because there's a lot of money moving through there. So if our country can, not to say time out, because it's not that easy. We're talking about stuff that's actually not that
it's complicated.
easy, and it's
really complicated
systems. But if we want to, and sometimes it feels like it's okay. How we operate like we operate. Let's just go on. Tomorrow's another day.
Listen, I mean, ultimately, 2024 is coming up, right?
Oh.
And I mean, and we're privileged to be in a democracy, and that those are the high level things, or the higher level things that need to be attended to, within Parliament, etc., etc. I think in terms of starting now, this is a big play for people. Is that, yes, there needs to be energy at the top driving change there, because obviously we haven't been able to actually garner that level of investment that is required to date based on the way that things are structured now. But whilst we're driving that from the top as well, or hopefully drive that from the top as well, going forward, we can also drive that from the bottom part, right?
That's it. We're not going to stop in any way. So we're going to drive this thing.
Well, we aren't going to stop.
No.
I mean, listen, and to be honest, if we can humbly state, I think that's something that this generation really needs to pick up. Really go after what's in your heart, and then decide not to stop. You keep on and you keep on and you keep on and you keep on, and you actually practically keep on failing forward. Because here's the thing, I mean, listen, we agree on this, right? If you keep on failing forward, you're not going to ultimately fail. Eventually you will succeed because you're failing forward, right? So the failure within the journey can ultimately lead to victory at the end.
Well done.
And I want to probe you on this, because it's probably one of the greatest things that you've taught me, that your father taught you, about if nothing changes. But I don't want to steal your thunder, so you can
If nothing
maybe
changes, everything stays the same. It's the most simplest thing that I ever heard.
Just say that again, because I think I spoke over you.
If nothing changes, everything stays the same.
I mean, that is super powerful.
It's so simple.
Exactly.
But the thing is, that's most probably one of the sayings that he always taught me, and I don't know where he got it. But the thing for me is, every time, and it comes down to some of the principles that we spoke about, why we started this thing, because we do understand it. If we're just going to sit and talk about the podcast that we want to do, the business that we want to start, it's not going to change. You need to change something. That's why it's difficult to, start something and to birth something out of, because and the thing is, because you need to understand, your body loves a habit. He loves a habit.
Yes.
So he loves it to do the same bloody thing over. So create a habit of creating things, and
Well, most people have the habit of laziness, right? And laziness begets laziness.
But so the habit stirs whatever you're going to become. That's why it says you will become, with like the friends that you spend the most time with, or the people that you spend the most time with, because it's something that you'll become what you habitually do. So, and that comes, the saying of if nothing changes, everything stays the same, is something that we've been using a lot. And it's something that really stirs one if you go and think of every single day that you're not doing what you need to do. It's just...
Well, you're leading to... You're running towards a deathbed that's going to be filled with regret.
Well, you just leave... You don't have then so much time to fail.
Yes.
You're almost closing your target and your room for error. You're narrowing it down because the time gets,
This is the thing.
So, so I think for me, it's super important that if people... Because most people, if you ask them, they know actually what they need to do. They really know, they just don't want to admit it.
Well, it's instinct, right?
I mean,
listen, I think everybody can agree that there is a measure of instinct in 100%. Every single person.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. I truly believe everything that I did was super instinct. And the the fact that I needed to learn and educate myself was also instinct. But I had the choice: am I going to do it because that's the tough part, or am I going to now sit and study? Because study is one of the things that I hated, and now it's something. Yes, it became habit. Now I read and do all these things. I don't really. I do the audiobooks and stuff. So, but it's still something that it became habit because I did it for so freaking. It was about 4 years or 5 years of constant flipping learning all these things in my trade.
Yes.
But then obviously it helped me to apply it in all the other trades. But
I agree.
yeah, so I think Steve-O, for episode 4.
Listen, it's been eventful, has it not? I mean, I'm excited for next week.
Yeah.
So I think from our side, if you guys would please, push your comments. We really actually try to get to them, and we take them into account, and it certainly is valuable in us building this community. Like and subscribe, and for everybody chasing after their dreams, I think that one thing that we could end off with is the simple idea that God gives you the trees, but you need to ultimately build the tables and the chairs. So take up that authority and build those tables and those chairs. Cool.
Ciao.
Episode 4.
Cheers, guys.